What's going on, guys? Oliver here. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video. What I want to do in this series is basically summarize the Lifespan podcast by David Sinclair. And why am I doing this? Why can't people just watch the podcast? Well, they can, and I encourage that they do. They're brilliant. And also the book, Lifespan, is brilliant. I recommend you read it. I've been sending this to everyone, all my friends. And the consensus is that it's quite science heavy. So I did biomedical science university, so I understand the content. What I want to do in this series is deliver the actionable steps. How am I going to live to 100? What can I do in my life right now that's going to make me healthier and it's going to make me live longer? I'm going to break these videos up into the behaviors and the science behind the behaviors. How you live determines how long you're going to live. And I don't think that's a common opinion. I think people say, oh, well, my grandma or my auntie, they smoke 20 a day and they live till 90. And that gives a feeling of, it's kind of random. It's up to luck. It's up to your genetics. That gives you a kind of apathetic feeling to being healthier. I want to be healthy because I want to look good or I want to feel good, but I might not live longer because of it. That is not true. And David says on the podcast that it's 80% how you live that contributes to your age. Another thing that people say is, really quickly, I know that I'm babbling, why do I want to live for another 20 years? What's the point? Well, you live healthier now, and you live healthier into old age. You're not as frail, your bones are better, your heart's better, everything is better when you adopt these behaviors because you're aging less slowly. If you're scared about getting cancer, if you're scared about getting Alzheimer's, listen to this and try and adopt some of these behaviors into your life. So I said earlier that I'm going to break it up into science and to behaviors. The first podcast is about science, the science of how we age. You can take a lot away from this. It gives you a feeling of how to live generally without doing specific things like fasting or whatever I'm going to speak about in future episodes. This is going to give you an understanding of why these are working. I'm going to split this up into 3 sections. So firstly, I'm going to speak about epigenetics and hormesis. Second, facts and figures from his research. And third, the main 3 groups of longevity genes that can be manipulated to extend our life. So epigenetics, how our behaviors and environment affects how our genes work. This is the mechanism that underlies all of these podcasts. A simple example of this is intensive exercise. So you could go out running for the first time and really push yourself, and at the end you're gasping for air and you're really tired and you maybe feel a bit sick. But if you continue to do that, by the 3rd time you do it, you're not going to be breathing as heavy. You're going to be a little bit adapted. It's going to be a little bit easier and you're not going to feel sick. What that is your behavior pushing your body, producing an effect, which is making your body adapt to that behavior and making it stronger. That's one form of epigenetics. There's lots of epigenetics like environment, the air pollution, all these things affect your genes. But this type of epigenetics is called hormesis, which is the concept of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. As long as you don't seriously damage your physical health. Like for example, David Goggins, I read, he ran a marathon on broken shins. He's absolutely fine. He's loving life. He's great. He's inspired millions of people, but that's not advised. Not pushing yourself to that limit, but pushing yourself hard, within reason is going to be good for you. That's what underpins all of this research. Pushing your body to a point where it's in adversity is going to strengthen your body and it's going to repair your body and it's going to make you able to deal with what's to come. So aging is just our ability to deal with stress decreasing over time. If we tweak our genetics in order to deal with the stress better, we can slow the process of aging and feel better in the meantime. When we're physiologically stronger, there's less chance of getting cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. So number 2, his research. He makes a clear distinction between our biological clock and the age we tell people we are. They are completely separate. One is how many times the Earth goes around the sun, and the other is our true biological age, which can now, through his technology, be measured, which means we can predict when we're going to die. If you want a quick indication of your biological clock, this has actually been tested. It's how old you look. I know that's kind of crazy, but it's a pretty accurate indicator. If you look younger than your peers, you're probably got a lower biological age than what you are. David Sinclair looks about 44 and he's 52, so he's doing something right. But don't worry if you're not looking younger. It's never too late to slow down aging, and it's just by adopting these simple behaviors like fasting, like eating a Mediterranean diet, plant-based, maybe a bit of fish, lots of olive oil, hot and cold exposure, exposing yourself to the sauna, cold showers, A great point he makes is the longer you live, the longer you can live. The way the research is going, in 10 years, for every year you live, you may get a month back, as the mechanisms for which you can extend your lifespan progresses, like through supplements and NAD and all these things that are coming onto the market, as well as the behaviours. You might get to a point where you live an extra year and you get 3 months back. And as this progresses, you can live a year and get a year back. And you know what that means. You're in equilibrium. You're immortal at that point. Nicholas Flamel, the elixir of life. We've got the elixir of life here. Most of the experiments that's been done has been on animals. With lifespan, you've got to monitor it over a whole life. So if this research has been done in the last 20 years, when since his lab's been open, that's not a lifespan, that's not close to a lifespan. Before this is completely proven, we're gonna be dead. There's been remarkable experiments done on animals that showed 50%, 100% increases in lifespan. A lot of these animals have got the same genes, the same DNA, and there's been experiments done on humans, just taking people at their later stage of life. So number 3, the genes, the longevity genes. There are 3 fundamental sets of genes that control how long we live. We can exploit these genes to slow down aging and even reverse the aging process. These genes maintain and repair the body, which makes us healthier and live longer. So whales have multiple copies of these longevity genes that occur naturally, and whales live forever. Not forever, but they live a really long life. In humans, these genes get turned on, and I'll explain what that means as well. Turned on by adversity, as long as the adversity doesn't cause long-term physical damage. This adversity can be fasting, cold exposure. A lot of the behaviors, it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. When we were on the plains of the savannah, we couldn't just go downstairs and open the fridge and say, what can I have? We didn't have food all the time. It wasn't accessible. We had to run and we had to hunt to get food, or we had to forage to get food. We had to exert energy. But we've developed mechanisms to deal with this. We've developed mechanisms to deal with adversity. Despite us being cold, despite us being predated on, despite all these things, we're here. If we got thrown outside now in cold weather, we couldn't survive, right? But could we? We need to push our bodies, because right now we're soft, we're sedentary, we're indulgent. We need to trick our body into thinking we're under threat of survival, and that's gonna pay dividends later on. So the 3 genes are called mTOR, AMPK, and sirtuins. So just a quick science 101. I'm just gonna quickly tell you about a cell, about the DNA, about how it works, just very briefly. If you wanna skip this, it's all gonna be timestamped down below. Our body is based on proteins. So proteins are essential for you to live, as they have multiple roles in transport, structure, and building and repairing the body. How proteins are made: genes join certain amino acids together. Amino acids is what makes up proteins. They join it in a certain way to make certain proteins, so that these proteins have certain functions. The gene for brown eyes will join these amino acids in a way that makes this protein, and this protein is going to make you have brown eyes. If it's joined in a different way, like there's a blue eye gene, they're going to be joined in a different way. It's going to make a different protein, and then you're going to get blue eyes. And it's not just physical appearances, it's how fast you can run, or like how long you can jump. So when you eat a steak, which is full of protein and full of amino acids, branched chain amino acids, your body senses this, mTOR senses this, and it says, life's good, we've got all this protein, we can burn energy, we don't need to be preservative in any way. And too much of this is really not good for the body, because you're not allowing the body to heal, to repair. What we actually want to do is inhibit mTOR as much as possible, because this is a signal to the body that times are tough, we're hungry, we don't have the substance we need to survive. And this creates that hormesis effect. If you never fast and you eat high amounts of protein all the time, it's similar to not exercising. It's similar to sitting down all day and not actually getting out and doing strenuous exercise, because you're not creating a hormesis effect, you're not putting your body under stress, and you're weakening your system. And that's not going to be good for the rate at which you age. You're going to age faster because of that. The second gene is AMPK, and we want to activate AMPK. AMPK is activated by low energy, low glucose in the blood. So again, we can achieve this by fasting or simply avoiding foods high in sugar. We want to activate AMPK because it sits as a central regulator of the body's defenses, and it also down-regulates mTOR and activates other longevity genes. These genes work together, which is great, and if they all are triggered by certain activities like fasting, it's a really good thing to do. I've spoken about fasting a lot, and rightly so, because the single best way to extend your lifespan and to get healthier is by fasting. And you can't just fast but then eat loads and loads of sugar and protein when you do eat, or smoke, or never exercise. They work in conjunction, but fasting is really, really important, and I don't think it's something that a lot of people don't do. So how AMPK works is it makes your body sensitive to insulin. Insulin promotes absorption of glucose. In other words, it sucks sugar out of the blood. So when you have high sensitivity to insulin, you suck more sugar than normal out of your blood. AMPK also ramps up mitochondria, which are the energy producing centers of your body. There's a drug called metformin which activates AMPK. Metformin is given as a type 2 diabetes drug because people with type 2 diabetes generally have too much sugar in their blood, which forms these treacle deposits, and metformin helps suck that sugar out of the blood. There's an incredible fact that type 2 diabetes patients who take metformin on average live longer than people without diabetes. Now, I found this absolutely mind-blowing because type 2 diabetes patients are generally overweight. 85% of them are overweight. So there's a good chance they're going to have other problems as well, not just the diabetes. They're going to have high cholesterol or heart problems or whatever. And they still, on average, live longer than people without diabetes. That's just like, what? It's a huge indication that activating these genes is going to make you healthier and live longer. And the third one, my favorite one, because it's just really interesting, is sirtuins. So what I didn't mention earlier is how DNA is packaged. So there are these 6-foot strands of DNA, and they're beautifully packaged and woven around these proteins called histones, and they're packed into these microscopic proportions, and they make chromosomes. So when I was talking about genes being turned on or turned off before, I'm going to explain that now. Every cell in our body has the same DNA, but just certain parts of that genetic code are read and certain parts aren't read. And that's what I mean by turning on and turning off. The parts of the genetic code that are read are turned on and the rest is turned off. And that's how a brain cell knows it's a brain cell, right? Because you've got all this DNA and all this code that's giving you information to perform certain functions. But if you read all of it, you're not going to know where you are. But if you just read a certain portion of it, so this part of genetic code, that's going to be like, I'm a brain cell. And then in a liver cell, you're going to read another part and that's going to be, I'm a liver cell, performing liver cell functions, right? And part of the reason why it can be read in the correct way is the way in which it's packaged. Now, as you get older, this packaging starts to break down or the unspooling starts happening. So remember what I was saying about the DNA being spooled into these tight packages? As you get older, part of the DNA starts to unspool. So a bigger portion of the genetic code can be read. Now, when you're a brain cell and it's like, ooh, you're reading some liver cell functions, that's really not good for your body. You know, you need to have identity. And this is what happens when people get Alzheimer's. Some of this DNA is unspooled and your body gets confused. So this process of going from specialized to less specialized is called X differentiation. And this process is the cause of all aging and the cause of many diseases, as aging and disease are heavily tied to each other. If we can slow down or reverse aging, we can do the same to disease respectively. In experiments in animals, they've actually completely got rid of a disease through reversing aging. So back to sirtuins. Why are sirtuins good for you? Well, remember that unspooling? Sirtuins are employed in DNA repair. They bundle that DNA back into that beautiful format that it was in before. So they act to partially reset aging. And again, sirtuins are activated by low energy and low glucose in the cell. You want to adopt certain behaviors that put your body into adversity and tricks it into thinking it's under threat of survival. That produces a hormesis effect. It helps you to be stronger and healthier in the moment. If you do this, you will live a healthier life and a longer life. Fasting, sauna, Mediterranean diet, exercise, get rid of sugar from your diet. So that's it, guys, for this video. I'm just so excited to be speaking about this. I never thought that I would be alive in a generation that has got information that's going to really help you to slow down aging. I've lost loved ones from cancer. If this information was about 20 years ago, I'm almost certain that that wouldn't have happened in the time it did happen. It's exciting for our generation. It's exciting for future generations, my kids, my grandkids. Just by doing certain things, certain habits in my life that are not going to cause me any kind of unhappiness, I can live longer. David says in the book, this is written for my wife, for my grandma, and for my great grandchildren who I'm looking forward to meeting. And I'm like, ooh! I think he will meet them. I think I'm going to meet mine. I'm so glad that you're here and you're on this journey with me. I look forward to seeing you. Well, I won't see you. I've been through this before. I look forward to you seeing me. It's a bit voyeuristic, I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad you're here and I'll see you in the next episode.